Hey, this is Giang Nguyen, and you're listening to the Immi-Wealth Builder podcast, where we celebrate incredible immigrant success stories, share proven strategies, and give you actionable steps to build your wealth, freedom, and a lasting legacy. Let's go get it. Today, we have Mtende Roll with us. She is an unstoppable entrepreneur, a published author, and a creative powerhouse. And today she co-owns a construction company and a growing real estate portfolio, all because she didn't let her circumstances stand in the way of her future. So I'm super excited for you to hear her amazing story. With that, Matende, can you introduce yourself, share with us how you came to the US, what do you do, and also just the beginning of your wealth building journey here in the US?
All right. Thank you so much for having me. I'm honored to be a guest on this incredible show. Like she mentioned, my name is Mtende. Born and raised in South Africa. My parents are Malawian. What brought me to the US, long story short, is that I met my husband in Cape Town, South Africa, where I was living at the time. He was studying abroad and we lived 2 streets away from each other. And now I live in Alamance County, North Carolina. How we got or started this wealth building specifically within construction and real estate was, so we got married in 2017 and we bought our first house with the help of family members to help us with the down payment. And in our area, it was around $60,000 for a house. It was a 3 bedroom, 1 bathroom, around 800, 900 square feet. So pretty tiny, but it worked for what we needed. And at the time of me being here, I was still waiting for my paperwork to come in, so I couldn't legally get a job. So what we decided to do is, at that time, we didn't know it was called house hacking, but that's the term that everybody uses today. So we took one of the rooms and we turned it into an Airbnb. So you can imagine strangers coming in, sharing a bathroom with us, but it worked. It worked really well, and we just started to get a lot of traveling nurses primarily
Mm.
and people who were in the area for a conference. And we had one Airbnb guest that just kept on popping up over and over again. And then we decided to have a separate contract with her, and she moved in. And we ended up building a tiny house behind our house in ADU that she could move in, and that was paying the whole mortgage.
Wow.
So that's the real estate part. And we thought, okay, this is a pretty good model, at least in our area. And we had an opportunity to buy our second home, which was owner finance from a local contractor who
Mhm.
started this project, didn't want to finish it, reached out to us. We moved into it. And that's sort of the beginning of that. The construction side started around the same time that we moved into our first house. And primarily, like, my husband loves working with his hands. I like seeing things from start to finish. But at that time, we don't have a background. None of our family's background is in construction or real estate. But in that very first house, our HVAC broke.
Oh, wow.
And we got told that it will cost $4,000 to fix the HVAC. And remember, I don't have a full income job. My husband, we just graduated from school as well.
Mm.
And we don't have the money to do that. But we knew an HVAC person who came over, a friend of ours, and he looked at it and he said, well, you can get a new HVAC for 4,000, or you can buy this tiny little piece from O'Reilly's or AutoZone for $8, and that would fix it. And we kept that same HVAC system for a few more years after that. But at that point, for my husband at least, he was like, there's so much that he just does not know,
Mm.
and wanted to work with his hands. So that sort of sparked his interest in going into the trades and figuring out, like, what are the other things that he doesn't know? How can I see things from start to finish?
Mm.
So we started the construction company 2018, started off on Thumbtack, reaching out and just fixing post boxes or
Nice.
door frames, to today where we build new construction, spec homes. We do a few remodels as well, and light commercial.
Oh my gosh, I love this story so much, Matende. I want to break down how you guys started just being
Mhm.
resourceful, right? For the listeners, if you guys have a duplex, triplex, quadplex, you can definitely buy it, use under a primary home, a conventional loan as a homeowner, and be able to lease those units out and generate the income, right? And in this case, Mtende did not own a duplex, triplex, quadplex, so you can still do that with a single family home where you rent out that single extra rooms. And I love that in order to maximize the income, you decide to furnish it and do that for Airbnb, midterm rental. And then you saw a need to be like, hey, this one person really want to keep staying here. So let's just do a separate ADU, which is a really common strategy for listeners who may not have the space to do a duplex. If you guys have a garage or something that can be converted into a separate unit, that is also a way to maximize the income, right? Love that. And
Mhm.
what a crazy story about $4,000 HVAC change on $8 part. I'm like, I will take the $8 anytime.
Yes,
And
anytime, all
anytime.
day.
And if that is so crucial, right? To think about how things can be very costly, which is always important to get multiple quotes, get multiple opinions. And that's also jumpstart you guys' construction journey, which is amazing. Tell our listeners a little bit more about how at this point, right? You did not go to school for real estate or construction, neither did your husband. So tell me a little bit more about that learning process, how you guys
Mhm.
continue to learn and be able to equip yourself so that you can take on these investment properties or these construction projects.
Yeah, like I mentioned, we did not have that background, but we do like learning new things and we are very practical and resourceful and finding different ways to start from scratch.
Mm.
The construction building part was when we were dating and I was traveling back and forth to see him in the US or when he was coming to South Africa.
Mm.
He started building a tiny house as a part of his course at school. So he studied
Oh,
social entrepreneurship and I studied economics in school. But he
nice.
started building a tiny house and I helped him. The very first time we started was building the frame for it. And just working with that was very interesting and very specific. But as I got my green card and permanent residence,
Mhm.
I finished my degree in economics at A&T in Greensboro. So Aggie Pride, if anybody is an Aggie out there. But yeah, finished my degree there. And what we decided was because construction and doing this was a little bit on the riskier side,
Mhm.
we were fortunate enough that we didn't have kids. So it wasn't any other dependents, but just the two of us,
Mhm.
that I took more of the conventional route and took a traditional W-2 9 to 5. So at
Mhm.
least we had something to fall back on as we started this construction company. And when we're doing that as well and getting into real estate, we started looking for other platforms to learn more about what other people are doing.
Mhm.
In our area, there wasn't many investors. We did find like two or three, and they became our mentors, which was really great. And then online, we found Bigger Pockets.
Okay.
So we started Bigger Pockets a few years ago, but it was just reading the platforms, seeing it. And we only went to our first conference
Mm.
last year. I
Okay.
think it was last year, 2 years ago. But yeah, online resources were a big thing and local mentors that we had.
Love it. Awesome. One thing that I definitely want the audience to take away is that however crazy you think your ideas might be, I promise you that there are people out there who either doing exactly what you're doing, who's ahead of you, who can help, or doing something similar that they can kind of show you like, hey, here's what I'm doing, here's what you can apply to your projects, right? So I love that even though you did not have that background in real estate investing, you know that there are people who are out there. So you have mentors who are local, which is always amazing. Definitely local mentors are great because they specifically know what that local markets look like. So fast forward, as you guys are growing your construction company and also your real estate investment company, how do you balance, I guess, growing both companies at the same time?
Yeah, balance is that key word that we're still trying to navigate today. So, as I mentioned, I took the conventional route and had a W-2. I actually taught myself coding and became a software developer,
Oh,
and I
wow.
worked an hour away while helping on the behind the scenes with the construction company, our website, marketing strategies, and also a little bit on our portfolio. And about 2, 3 years ago, the properties were growing so much, the construction side was growing so much that I could actually take a step back from my
Mm.
role and do this full time. So that managing aspect is that we decided to split the whole thing where he will take on the construction because we had external clients
Hmm.
and I'll take over the property portfolio that we buy and hold, which is a combination of residential and commercial. And managing all of that, it sort of started slowly, and then opportunities just kept on coming and we kept on taking them, which was great, but also a big learning curve as we scaled a lot,
Mhm.
learning how to manage tenants and do tenant screening, where in the beginning we didn't really have a process. And that definitely kicked us in the butt a few times. And now creating those systems and processes as we're growing to the point where now we have our portfolio that just has about under 30 properties,
Mm,
both commercial and residential,
thanks.
storage units as well. And then on our construction side, we have about 8 people under us who are working for the company.
Nice. Okay. As you guys are growing, what were some of the challenges that you guys came into that you guys have already solved? And then what are some of the challenges that you guys are taking on next as you guys are in this next phase of growth?
Yeah, one big challenge, financing. Like that's funding your deals. That's the biggest thing that everybody
Mm-hmm.
is always needing and talking about and trying to problem solve. And one of the things that we were fortunate with was that we were able to reach out to networks that we currently had and move over to the private lending side of it and not just rely completely on conventional banks.
Mm-hmm.
And that helped because we were able to either purchase property or land via private lending. We could fix it up with the construction side of the company that we have,
Mm,
and then go to the bank and get a conventional loan on it. So that was one of the challenges that we had and how we solved that.
awesome.
And yeah, that's been also a learning curve as well,
Mm-hmm.
understanding different interest rates as everybody has seen. Because our first house, we had like 3%, and our mortgage was 400 a month.
Yeah.
So that could pay itself with just this tenant with Airbnb, even
Yeah.
to today where we're seeing interest rates that we were hoping to go down,
Yeah.
but are crazy stuff. And the private lending, I mean, those interest rates can get intense.
Mm-hmm.
So learning to take a step back, tap into other resources, whether it is a tax strategist or our CPA. We have a fractional CFO that helps us look at our books and be like, okay, what is a better way to make use of our private lenders
Mm-hmm.
and our banks as well, so that we're not constantly having to pay high interests
Mm.
or pay back things.
Awesome. I love it. It definitely brought up a really excellent point. I always tell people that as you grow or as you start, there's always this like three piece of a triangle that you think of, right? There's deals, there's team members, and then there's funding. So it sounds like for your market, you guys have a consistent deal pipeline. You guys have your team members, right? You have a construction company, and the piece that you needed to solve was the financing. And you solve that with using private lenders. There are a lot of people around you who may neither have the time or the experience to do these investment projects. So they can come on and become your money partner where they can land on your project, right? Which Mtende is doing. She essentially tap into her network of people around you who may not have the time, may not have the experience, who then lend her the capital, right? Become her money partner. And now everybody can grow. Your private lender's money can grow. And then now this leads to the next piece with rising interest rate, which is something everybody is working on figuring out. And then also, I love that you guys have a CFO to then help you strategize on how to best use this private lender. So I think that's great. So thinking about where you guys are at right now, I think you shared that your husband is in charge of the construction company and you are in charge of the management side, your own investment portfolio. Think about your daily focus. How do you decide where do you focus your time and energy during this growth period?
Yeah, every day is very different, which is why one thing I love about the industry, because my brain is all over the place and I
Mm,
like the difference, but there has to be some sort of structure.
mm,
Last year, I got my real estate license so that I can be the one to sell the properties that we do have and sort of retain even more of the money that could be given out to somebody else.
mhm,
But with having the difference, managing tenants, looking at more investing, having the clients on the construction side, sort of having to break down the day. One of my biggest tips or tools that I keep on using is this clock.
ooh,
So it's like a timer. You can find it anywhere on Amazon or whatever, but it helps me keep focused on things because I could easily be down a rabbit hole and there it
yeah,
goes off. But I can easily go down a rabbit hole and find a new resource. There's so much resources and information out there
yeah,
that you can be overwhelmed.
yeah.
So I could find one article
Mhm.
and then spend 5 hours on it and researching that topic, but using that timer to be like, okay, let's spend an hour looking at emails. Let's spend 30 minutes researching this new thing that just popped up. Let's analyze properties for like 2 hours.
Mhm.
And that's how I sort of break my day up with my calendar as well.
I love that. Okay. I also love the physical clock. That really
Mhm.
helped because I do it on my phone. And sometimes I would pick up my phone and then automatically my fingers would open up some other apps that is not
Mhm.
a clock app.
Me too.
So it's a great way to have a separate thing as a clock and really set that time block, right? And then set a deadline and set a timer because I know for a lot of listeners, if you think you're going to do something in a day, it's going to take a day. If you set something for
Mhm.
2 hours, it's going to be done in 2 hours. So that time block is very crucial as you grow and as you have a lot of things on your plate that you're navigating. For the listeners who are brand new, who are maybe at a W-2, not sure how to jumpstart their wealth building journey into real estate, into owning a company, what would you say would be their first step to take?
I think their first step would be doing an internal review of what are their current things that they have.
Mm,
So for us, we were very lucky, very, very lucky that when I moved this side, I didn't have any student debt.
mm,
I came basically with nothing. So I didn't have any wealth, but also didn't have any student debt. So it was easier for me to be more riskier because I didn't have that expense. And Jensen also didn't have student debt. So there was a level of privilege or like luck that not a lot of people have. So if you have that, like look at your expenses, look at your income. Are you currently living in something that you do own? Are you renting? Sort of create that spreadsheet or write on a piece of paper, just everything that you have. What are your resources? And also your network.
mm.
So that will be your first step.
Love that. Yeah, do that internal review. See what you have, what is your strength, where is it that you may need help, right? And that help
Mhm.
can come in a form of partner. Just like what we mentioned earlier with private money lender, that can be your partner if you don't have a big chunk. And the other thing you said that I thought was a really good point is that if you're owning a house right now, you can definitely consider using what Matende has used is trying to consider house hacking, whether renting out a room for traveling nurses or short-term rental, right? If you're currently renting, check your lease. I don't want to give you a wrong advice, but check your lease, check your city regulation, but you may be able to still lease out a room or a space, even though you're leasing right now, right? To completely offset your monthly rent, and that can really help you propel this wealth building journey forward. So I love that you mentioned just to take that internal stock of what is going on and then move forward from there. I definitely want to
Mhm.
pivot and talk a little bit more about this poetry and this creative side of you. Tell us more about that.
Yeah, well, funny you should mention that. Doing like self-advertising. But
I
yes, I published my first book
love it.
in March, February, March of 2024. It's
Oh,
called Poetic Persona.
oh my God.
Um, and so I think since 2013, I have, well, since I was a child, I used to
Wow.
write in a journal a lot. And at some point, my writing turned into more of a poetry flow. And starting 2014, I started sharing my poetry with people.
Okay.
And fun fact, the first time that I ever shared my poetry to a group of people, Jensen, my now husband, was there to see it, but we weren't even dating at that time. So he
Oh,
has been my biggest cheerleader. He has seen from just barely sharing it with people to now having a book.
oh.
So I really like it's that creative side. A lot of people who are in real estate that I've met have some form of creativity,
Mhm,
whether it's creative financing,
mhm.
but also in other pursuits, whether it's art, whether it's music, whether it's podcasts. So that is one of my outlets.
I love that. Tell us a little bit more about this published product, which I love the cover and I love the name. Tell us more about maybe the theme that you're exploring there. And how do you, I guess, I want to say balance, but how do you kind of find time to write these poetries? Yeah, tell us more
Yeah.
about that.
Yeah, so the name of the book is Poetic Persona, and it's a combination of all of the poems that I've written since 2013.
Wow.
So you get to see very rough ones, which is why I actually made the book into a hardcover because I was like, at least it can look pretty on your table. And the process to actually publish it didn't take too long because I already had the
Mm,
poems written out.
nice.
The difficult part was because I write my poems on my phone, on a napkin, on a
Oh.
piece of paper. I have a Google Drive from 2015 that has a couple of poems. I have hard drives, so it was bringing them all together.
Mm,
And how I found time was that the way my brain works is I need to do it now or it will never
mm,
happen.
love
So
it.
I reached out to a self-publisher, and within 2 months, I already had all the documents in,
Nice.
and they went to publishing last year. Mm.
How amazing. I love that. Now is the time, right?
Yeah.
Not later. Now
Now.
is the time. And I love you mentioned the creative side. I am a salsa dancer. So I do have that competitive side, but also the artistic side. And just like you said, I think everybody always have something, whether they realize it or not, whether they suppress it or not. I always love exploring this idea of creative and logical side and how both of them actually help us grow as a person, as an entrepreneur, as an investor. And I think that's
Mhm.
really help us problem solve. A lot of problem solving is a mix of creativity and logic. So I think it's great that you have that outlet. What's your plan for poetic persona?
The initial plan was just to have a hardcover copy of all my poems put into one place.
Mm,
And a lot of people were also asking, like, where can we see your poems? So that was one of it. But then my sister, she just graduated from university as a fine arts student.
oh, okay.
So me and her are actually working on another book where she's going to illustrate it. And hopefully that'll come out sometime this year, which I am super excited about. So everybody keep your ears open to when that will be released because it's already looking so beautiful. But it wasn't necessarily a money making project, but it can make money. So
Mhm.
please buy it. But just a way of just expressing and also practicing putting myself out there. I liked what you were talking about earlier on just you being a salsa dancer and just being creative as an entrepreneur. And when you do have that mindset that you think that there's different ways of either creating money or expressing yourself, and you need to act now, or you'll be stuck in that paralysis analysis sort of
Yeah.
cycle. So I just needed to get it done. Even if I don't have a 10-year plan of what the outcome is going to be, at least starting it
Mhm.
has been very helpful.
Amazing. Start now. Start today. If you're listening, if you have been putting something off, right? Whether it's a passion project, whether it's showcasing or just sharing that you're a real estate investor. I know a lot of people kind of invest in secrecy because they don't want to share that identity of themselves. Whatever it is, do that now, do it today. I love that advice. All right, so now we're gonna get to a section of the podcast where I get to ask a random question that was left behind by our previous guest. And your question is, was one mistake or unexpected lesson that you want other to avoid or know
Mhm.
about?
I think a mistake or a lesson learned
Mm-hmm.
is that imposter syndrome.
Mm.
Being a woman, as being a woman of color, as being not from the US, there's so many different buts, what ifs, and all of that stuff. And the mistake that can come from it
Mm.
is that you can start doubting yourself. And for
Mm.
many years, and even to this day, I doubt myself. I doubt my knowledge. I doubt my skills. I feel like I don't belong. And when I started to sit back and started looking at who else is in the room, how did they get there? There's so many people who are completely underqualified who only had confidence. That's all they had. And then you had to charm people. And that's how they got to the areas and the position that they're in. And I think the earlier we can start unpacking or like removing those buts and what ifs and I'm
Mm.
not good enoughs, the better that you can make decisions, the better that you can actually take on some of those risks and actually get the reward. Because a lot of the times, the ones who have the imposter syndrome are the ones that are so much more qualified, and the outcome that they can get is
Yeah.
phenomenal.
Well said. What I guess the action that listeners can take is start before you think you're ready. because that's when the imposter syndrome show up, right? They're gonna want
Yeah.
for you to know 150% before you can start. You may know 50%, you may think you know 50%, but you're gonna be much more prepared than you think you are. Love that. All right. So now I always want to ask our guests to share a charity or cause that they're a champion of. Because Mtende, you've been sharing with us so much of your stories, share with us the lessons that you learned, and this is really important for our listeners. And I just want to make sure our listeners can have a way of supporting you by supporting a charity or a cause of your choice. So please share with us what we can support to thank you for your time being here today.
Yes, I love this question. One charity, I mean, there's many, but one charity is a local organization, nonprofit in our area called Benevolence Farms. And they help women transition out of the correctional facility as one of their big missions, and
Ooh.
also provide them housing at least for a year, because finding a job, you need an address. Just to be able to get solid after being in the correctional services is very difficult. So you could reach them out. They have an Instagram, they have a Facebook, they have a website to just learn more about them. And one of their jobs that they have is that they do candles. So they make candles and different soaps as well. So you can either donate directly to them, or you can buy the candles for yourself, or you can buy for a friend. So it's a
Oh, I love
win-win
that.
situation all the way around. And one of the big projects is that our construction company is working with them to build 7 tiny houses on their property so they
Oh,
can have
wow.
more housing in the area. So
Wow, amazing. I love that. I really love that as entrepreneur, what we get to do is use our skills, use our resources to do more good in the world. And I really love that you're collaborating with that. I would love for you to share how our audience can get in touch with you, follow your journey, tell us how we can continue to know more about what you're up to.
I think the best way would be through my Instagram, because on my Instagram, I'll have also the links to the other things that I am doing,
Awesome.
as being multifaceted and multi-passionate in many ways. So my Instagram is going to be great. And we'll also put our construction website and construction handles as well. If you're ever in the North Carolina, Alamance area and you need a great builder, we can help you out.
Amazing. I'll put Matende's Instagram, the construction company, and link to her poetry book
Yes. Oh
all
my gosh. Yes.
all in the show notes for sure. Thank you so much for being here with us, and I'm excited to see where all this journey takes you. Thank you for being
Yes.
here.
Mhm. Bye.